Are you wanting to add to the growing library of video games in your collection, or are you getting to a point in your life where you're ready to downsize and sell some of your collection, but you're just not sure what's the best site for buying and selling video games? Well, you're in luck, because over here at the Show Me Retro channel, we are not afraid to tackle the hard-hitting topics. I mean, we really got our finger on the pulse.
I can't tell if you're being serious.
But seriously, I've been asked so many times which site I think is best for buying and selling video games, eBay or Mercari. So I thought I'd just kind of break down some pros and cons of each site and tell you which one I think is best, and then you can take that information and decide which one is best for yourself. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get into it. So first, let's focus on buying and start with eBay. So eBay is the OG. They've been around since 1995. I started using this site around 1998 or 1999, somewhere around there. I was actually selling VHS tapes and replacing them with DVDs when that started to really take off. And I've always really liked eBay. Very seldom have I had any issues with it. And they've worked out a lot of the problems over the years. I mean, they've had their ups and downs, but I think right now, for the most part, they've really made things very easy for someone to buy or sell that is completely new to the site. They just really made it very easy. But as far as buying video games, I still think that it's, in this day and age, still a fairly good way to add to your collection. Prices can tend to be high. However, they do have best offers. Now, the seller has to enable that, but what I've done in the past, if I've seen something that's been on there for a while, you can just message the seller, and many times, not always, but there have been quite a few times, actually a few for me as of late, where I've just messaged the seller and said, hey, would you take X amount for this game? And I remember I had like 2 out of 2. I just asked people, hey, would you take this? And they'd be like, sure. And they would change it, send me a link and say, hey, it's live now at that price. And boom, I would buy it now. So don't hesitate to ask someone. It doesn't hurt. You know, the least they could say is no. But again, yes, sometimes prices on eBay can seem a little bit high. But I do like the fact that a lot of times you'll see free shipping, people that are willing to eat the cost of the shipping. They might jack the price up a little bit, but if they have best offer, you know, there's still some ways to get deals. And I found Switch games very, very inexpensive sometimes on eBay. You can just get lucky and actually find prices much cheaper than they are at retail. Now, when it comes to retro video games, yeah, most prices are usually at price charting, sometimes higher. But again, just use those tools. Another option to do is just to keep an eye out for auctions, because sometimes you can catch people sleeping. You know, they may not be watching as that auction's ending. Maybe they are at work. Maybe they can't get to their phone in time. You can get lucky, slip in there, make that bid on the last 5 seconds and make your score. Just make sure you're putting that bid in to what you're comfortable with. Don't pay more than what you normally would. Just put your max, and if you lose it, then just deal with it. Now, the good thing about eBay is if there is any issues with something that you've bought, there's a lot of options when it comes to buyer protection. eBay is really good about siding with the buyer if there is a problem. It's good if you're a buyer, sometimes not so good if you're a seller, because you can kind of state your case, and a lot of times they'll rule for the buyer because that's the person they seem to want to protect. I've also noticed that, you know, they've changed over the years the way that you can leave feedback. You can't leave negative feedback for certain people, buyers in particular. But it's nice to know that if there's an issue, you can work things out. eBay actually encourages working out issues. You can get partial refunds, whatever you and this other person want to work out. They really don't care, which is opposite from Mercari. We'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah, those are definitely positives if there's a problem. So now let's talk about buying video games on Mercari. So Mercari started back in 2013. They are the new guy on the block, so to speak. They've been around for a little over 10 years, but they really didn't start to kind of take off, at least for me, until about 5 or 6 years ago, where I really started to notice them. I wanted to know, well, like, what's this site all about? And I really got into it for both buying and selling. I got some really great deals back in the day. I could probably show you some of them. Now, even back then, I mean, this is 4 or 5 years ago, some of these prices were just insanely low, but even back then, I got them way lower than they should have been. And the fact that you can make an offer on anything that's listed on Mercari. They do not have auctions. Everything is basically buy it now. You do have the option though to make an offer. It's not something that as a seller you can turn off. It's just built into the site. So automatically, if you click on make offer, it'll kind of show you different automatically calculated offers of like 10, 15, 20%. You can just automatically click on one of those and send an offer. You can actually go slightly higher than 20%, usually like 21, 22%, depending on the value of that item. But if you go any higher, even a penny over, it's going to tell you, no, you can only go to the max of this amount. The problem though with buying on Mercari currently in 2024 is that they've really started to cater towards sellers. And in doing so, the buyers have incurred a lot of the fees that sellers would have in the past. So they're trying to put the pressure on eBay, and they are offering 0 selling fees. So basically, if you're a seller, you sell something, that's the value that you're going to get. As a buyer now, you're now incurring costs that would have been kind of split between the two. Look at it this way, if you're buying something for around 20 bucks, you're probably gonna end up spending closer to 30. So just count on adding on just about anything you buy like $10 to $20 or so. That's gonna be shipping, that's gonna be state sales taxes and fees. And it's kind of sucks because it's great for the seller, but it's not so good for the buyer. So if somebody's already at price charting, you're gonna spend another $10 to $15 more for that item, and that really kind of puts it out of range. So in doing so, people are always sending you messages and offers. And I get it, you know, they want to somehow get a good deal. Maybe they've had a bad experience with eBay, so they go to Mercari, and then they're looking at the total price after all these other things are added up, and they're like, holy crap, you know, you wanted 20, which isn't a bad deal, but now it's going to cost me 32, you know, when it's all said and done. So it does have its downsides. Now, another negative with Mercari when you're buying is their return policy. You only have 2 choices. That's keep it or return it. There is no in between. And the really, really creepy part about it is that if you start to discuss an issue with the buyer, they are monitoring every word that you're saying in your chat messages to the person that you're dealing with. And if you use certain words, they will actually delete your messages and actually warn you. And that to me is very Big Brother-esque. I don't like it at all. I don't like that everything that I'm saying, either an actual person or some bot is monitoring what we're saying. You know, it just sucks that you don't have any other options other than just keep it or return it. But I have bought some things off Mercari lately, some ColecoVision games and some Switch games, and you know, I just saw some motivated people that basically say, make me an offer, and I made an offer. I got Warhammer Bolt Gun on the Switch recently for 20 bucks. After all the fees, it was just under 30 bucks, so it was like 29 and change. Not a bad deal. Still more than I wanted to pay for that game because I can get it cheaper digitally, but I wanted a physical copy, and it basically was probably, you know, one of the cheaper versions that I could find on Mercari, eBay, Amazon, or in a retail store, so I jumped on it. Now let's talk about selling, and we're going to start with eBay first because, you know, they're considered the gold standard of selling even in 2024. And for the most part, with video games, they still are, you know, one of the better places to sell video games. Although I have found, though, that I get more views on Mercari when I list things, and I always usually list them on both sites. Now I do have to adjust the values of what I'm selling that particular item for on eBay and Mercari because I'm not getting seller fees on Mercari, so you have to think about, you know, what the price starting value is, what you'd like to get out of it, set that value, knowing that you're going to get that value, whereas eBay, say I list something like recently I sold Cannon Spike on the Dreamcast. On eBay, I listed it for around $390, whereas Mercari, I put it around $340. I had to basically, you know, list it higher on eBay because that 15% turns into like almost $50 roughly. You know, those are things that you have to think about. So Ultimately, it did sell on eBay over Mercari. However, I got probably 10 times the amount of views and messages on Mercari. So for some reason, no matter what I sell, there are more eyes on anything that I sell, sometimes 10 times more, on Mercari than on eBay. And I don't really know why that is. If it's how I'm listing on eBay, if it's that I'm not promoting it, I really don't know. Again, if there's any issues with something that you've sold, it's a lot easier to work things out, with the person that has bought your item. Sometimes though, people can get kind of rude and you feel like they're just buying it, making something up, and then eBay is going to take their side and then you're out the money. I've heard those stories, haven't had a whole lot of that happen to me personally, but that is kind of a negative that can happen as a seller on eBay. Now, when it comes to getting paid for something you've sold, eBay is really good. You always get your money a lot faster than you do on Mercari. Usually when the item starts to make its way to the buyer is when you'll see that money show up in your account. It's pretty nice, and it's a lot better than Mercari. Now, when selling on Mercari, as I've said before, they've done away with selling fees, and this was a change that I saw, I think it was around the spring of 2024, and it's kind of changed the game a little bit. However, my sales are a little bit slower because the fees that the buyers are incurring, they're higher. You get a lot more messages of people wanting you to come down because they basically just come out and say, look, I'm going to get hit with all these fees. Can you work with me on price? And sometimes I will, sometimes I won't, just depends on what the item is. So it has its positives and its negatives. You're not getting any fees if you're doing a lot of selling. But I would imagine sales for a lot of people have slowed down. Also, getting paid on Mercari is kind of a long process. So you don't get paid until the buyer has inspected the package. They have 3 days to do so. So say it takes 6 days for me to ship something to the person that bought that item. They then have 3 more days on top of that to actually inspect it and then give me a review. If they do not, then I automatically they close it, and then that's over. There is no way to return that item or do anything, and then I get paid. But the maximum time there would be roughly 9 days, where on eBay, that would be a lot shorter, especially if you're shipping that item very quickly. That money then goes into your account, and then you can transfer it to your bank. However, you're going to get charged a $2 fee. Now, what I like to do is just to let that build up. I don't put every single sale as it's done into my bank account because, again, that's $2, $2, $2.
I want my $2!
I kind of wait till I've made a lot of sales, and then I might have just a couple things left that have been sitting for a while and I know aren't going to sell. So then I'll just transfer then maybe 5 sales that were bulked together into my account, and then you're only getting charged $2, so it doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal. All right, so that's a lot of information. Hopefully it wasn't too boring.
You said it, pal, not me.
Which one would I pick for buying and selling? Well, the answer is not so cut and dried. It kind of depends on what you're doing. I would personally say if you are buying, that eBay is probably going to be your best bet, mainly because there are auctions and you can snag something for a good price. Not always, but sometimes you can. You can also message sellers, like I said, and get the price down if they are motivated. I would say though, overall, I've had better luck at buying video games on eBay versus Mercari. Now, maybe not so much in the past, but in 2024, yes, I would say eBay is probably the better for adding to your collection. Now, when it comes to selling, it's really hard not to give the win to Mercari, mainly due to the elimination of seller fees. Again, you have to consider that you may not sell as much, but I have found that it hasn't really affected my sales that much. And I can many times put things at price charting value and still get sales. It may take a little bit longer. One of the examples I would give would be Pokemon stuff. Anything Pokemon video game related, you're probably going to get at price charting or even higher, even with the fees that are incurred. People just don't care. If they want it, they're going to pay it. A lot of times they don't even send me an offer, which is crazy. But yeah, I would have to give Mercari the nod when it comes to selling. But what I would say is, Even though I said eBay is better for buying and Mercari is better for selling, definitely use both of those when you are doing either or. If you're looking for a specific game, look on both of them. I make this video to try to save people some money because I would think in this day and age that you are as concerned as I am about the cost of everything.
The rent is too damn high.
And if you can save a couple bucks here and there, or $5 or $10, you know, why wouldn't you do so? Even look locally on Facebook as well, but you're probably not going to find, you know, something if it's kind of specific. But, you know, go to eBay, then go to Mercari. Make sure you do your searches very, very fine. Look at every single thing. And, you know, if it matches your criteria, reach out to sellers and say, hey, you know, would you go any lower? You know, the worst they could do is say no. Or in Mercari's case, they could block you, which I hate that. Sometimes I just ask someone a question and they block me just for asking a question, you know, if they have any wiggle room, which is pretty fucked up. But whatever, it is what it is. And again, the same goes for selling. You know, I list things on both. I have to adjust the prices because of the fees on eBay and the no seller fees on Mercari. But you might as well do both. If it sells on one or the other and you basically get the same amount back, you know, does it really matter? All right, guys, so there you go. I know that was a lot of information, but hopefully you could take something from it. They both have their pros and their cons. I do like them both. I do prefer one over the other for buying and selling. You might feel different, but if you haven't tried one or the other, consider doing so. If you were just a Mercari guy and you've never tried eBay, which I doubt that's the case, I would consider doing it. And I do know a lot of people that are eBay people that have never tried Mercari, and I highly, highly recommend that you take a look at it. There was a time where I kind of thought it was kind of like the garage sailing of online, you know, sales. It just seemed to be like there was a lot of junk on there, but man, I have found some really good stuff over the years and made some really good buys and sells. Definitely consider looking into it now that they've got zero selling fees. And again, just use all your options, but those are my picks for buying and selling. I prefer eBay for buying and I prefer Mercari for selling. All right, guys, so if you stuck around this long, thank you so much. But what I want to know from you is, which one do you prefer? Do you like eBay? Do you like Mercari? Do you use them both like me? Let me know in the comments. I would love to hear your thoughts. And as always, if you learned something or you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit that thumbs up and turn the notification bell so you know when I upload videos like this one. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.